What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the SB Nation NFL show. This is Monday Football Monday, the show that gets your week started and recaps everything that happened across the NFL on the previous Sunday. That's the way that time in the calendar works. A reminder that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That's code SBNNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. My name is RJ Ochoa. I work at SB Nation's Blogging the Boys, covering the 9-4 Dallas Cowboys, who were victorious in Week 14. We have all of the Sunday action to get to, as I mentioned, which we do every single week here on Monday Football Monday. What makes this show unique, besides the fact that we recap every NFL game, which no other NFL show obviously does, is we stream it live. You can watch us live on the SB Nation NFL Facebook page. You can watch us live on the SB Nation NFL Twitter page. YouTube is in the works, I hear, from all of our fantastic people behind the scenes over at SB Nation. And of course, you can listen to us on the SB Nation NFL show, wherever you get your podcasts. Search for the SB Nation NFL show, subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. If you do, you can hear the beautiful audio stylings of one Pete Sweeney from SB Nation's Arrowhead Pride, where he covers the Kansas City Chiefs, who embarrassed the Las Vegas Raiders, who had the audacity to head to the Arrowhead before the game started. I cannot wait to offer my thoughts on that. Like, I cannot wait to offer my thoughts on everything that happened on Sunday. But Pete, first things first, how are you doing this fantastic Monday morning? If I may say, you look ravishing, a little bit more ravishing than usual, not to say or imply that you don't normally look ravishing.
That's surprising to me because it's been an interesting couple days for me. One of my close friends decided to have his wedding on Saturday night in St. Louis, which is a 4-hour drive from Kansas City. So I went to his wedding on Saturday night, got up at 4:45 a.m. to make it back to the TV studio and then to Arrowhead Stadium. Not as much sleep as I would have wanted. And I said to a colleague before the Chiefs-Raiders game, I was like, if I could ever really request from the football gods for a blowout where it's an easier game to cover when it's a blowout, I would like that today. And so something finally broke my way. I was very excited that the Chiefs had it wrapped up like in the middle of the second quarter. I'm sure we'll get to that. But yeah, it's been an interesting few days trying to catch up on some sleep. And I'm heading to Los Angeles tomorrow for Thursday Night Football. So exciting times here in Kansas City.
That's right. Sister Sweeney and all of the people throughout the corporation that is Netflix, very excited to welcome you to the City of Angels. Two of your tweets now make sense, Pete, in retrospect, with you kind of filling in the gaps with the, the marathon that you ran. First of all, you tweeted before the game started, you said, I love noon games. I know why you love noon games, because that game gets over. You got a chance to sit back, relax. Your Sunday night starts sooner rather than later. Right. And at the beginning of the second half, I saw a tweet that I just kind of like mentally, bookmarked and said, I'm going to ask Pete about this. You said, QB Patrick Mahomes is coming out for the second half. I think a part of you was probably thinking, you know what, guys, just pack it up. I mean, you took care of this. There's no reason to really come out here for a whole nother half of football.
We were wondering if it was going to be one of those situations where, the backup Chad Henne came out. And I think we were only thinking it might be a quick yank because of the Thursday night game and because you're traveling 2 time zones away. It did eventually happen, but it was a little bit later than we thought. It would have been nice. Take him out and let's just right up to wrap up and get out of there.
We will get to the Chiefs game in totality in just a little bit, but we have a lot of games, obviously, to get to, Pete, before that happens. Where would you like to start? I mean, I'm here to make you happy, Pete. My life's mission is to make sure that you feel joy, that you feel happiness, that you feel a level of excitement that makes you want to get out of bed every day.
Yeah, no, and I know that we are going to talk about the Cowboys and my beloved WFT, and that'll be a high point for you. So let's start with the low point. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How about that?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers almost blew it away against the Buffalo Bills. It took overtime, but Tom Brady still owns the Buffalo Bills, 33-27, the final score. As mentioned, Buffalo, I was getting ready. You know how it is, Pete. When you cover a noon game, it kind of feels like the afternoon all kind of meshes together. You were literally in that boat yesterday. And so I was ready to fire off some tweets, Bills are frauds. And this hurts me because I believed in the Bills last year. And for what it's worth, I have called them frauds this year. I said on the look ahead a couple of weeks ago that had they lost to New England last week on Monday Night Football, they would lose 3 of their next 4 games, which includes the 2 Patriots games, the Tampa game. I fully believe they'll beat the Panthers because if there's a truly fraudulent team in the NFL, it is Carolina. But Buffalo, I think they deserve some credit. I don't know. It's a moral win. Maybe it's just a moral like pat on the back. But they did make this game respectable. However, not enough. Leonard Fournette, 113 yards and a touchdown on the ground, really just looks incredible. Tom Brady, 363 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, including the game winner. The Bucs look in prime position, Pete, to hopefully repeat, if you're a Bucs fan, obviously. And the Bills are floundering. The Bills are falling apart. They are 1 game away from 500.
Troubling for Buffalo right now is they had these Super Bowl aspirations, and why not? They were in the Final Four last year. They lost to the Chiefs in the AFC title, and they are dangerously close right now from being out of the postseason altogether. It is going to be a dogfight for them to make it. And you're right, they have the Panthers next week, but when you're pressing a little bit, you got to be careful. It's an any given Sunday type of thing. I mean, the Panthers right now look horrible. Cam Newton looks like he is done. Unfortunately, I was hoping that to be a better story and a better comeback for him, but it just isn't there. They put Walker in the game. He is worse somehow than Cam Newton looks right now. And so you have Buffalo. They should get that win, but then you have the Panthers. The Falcons can be spicy, or I'm sorry, they have the Patriots. The Falcons can be spicy, and then they should beat the New York Jets. But because the AFC is so dicey here, they're flirting with complete disaster. You don't want to be in a position where you have to win games down the stretch to make the postseason. Some teams are in that boat, and now the Buffalo Bills are one of them.
There are 5 teams in the AFC with a 7-6 record. The Bills, as you inferred, are currently hanging on by a thread in the AFC playoff race. They are the 7th seed, and they are behind the Indianapolis Colts because of that just absolute shellacking they took to Indianapolis. So they've lost the tiebreaker there. They are ahead of Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Denver in the race for that final wildcard spot. I think we're kind of ready. I know Thursday, if it goes one way, we'll make this a little bit more interesting, but I think we're kind of ready to give the Chargers or the AFC West loser the top AFC wild card, so to speak. And so, I mean, you're talking about one of 2 spots here. And again, I mean, this was just a really, it took like 3.5 quarters for Sean McDermott to use a running back, I mean,
I have a point on this because I remember it, and it was, when we're in the off season, we're searching for storylines and we're looking, to and fro, and I ended up somehow landing on Brandon Beane's pre-draft press conference because they had played the Chiefs, and I wanted to see if there was any information about beating the Chiefs, and maybe we can, the off season's hunt sometimes for stories. And I remember he said something in his pre-draft about, we don't have necessarily a home run hitter at running back. And then they didn't draft one. And not to say that you should draft one on the first day. I'm not in that camp. I know there are a lot of people, but they just never added another body that could be that workhorse type of guy to that room. And it was something that the personnel staff knew. And now you get to this point in the season and you don't trust Moss, inactive, a healthy scratch for some games. You don't really trust Singletary. You're making Josh Allen have to run the football. 12 attempts in this game, and he threw it 54 times. Allen, because teams have been a little bit better able to shore up Diggs this year, has become really your whole offense. And I think you became a victim to that on Sunday. And this is what worries me about the Bills. Josh Allen left the game in a walking boot. And okay, he may be able to play through it. But if he is your running game, now you're completely one-dimensional. On these 4 games, Panthers or not, or whoever you're playing, the Jets, are in that mix too. You have to win every single game. And now you've put yourself in a situation because you don't have a running back on the roster. This, to me, is a personnel fault. And then on the other side, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers look primed for the NFC tournament, and they have a why not us feel about them right now. They're playing their best football of the year, it seems, down the stretch once again. And so to me, this game was a story, and I know it came down to overtime. I know the Bills will themselves back into this game, but this to me came off as 2 teams heading in very opposite directions. And if the Bills somehow find themselves out of the playoffs, this year is a complete failure for that organization.
I think it's already a failure. I mean, because there, and look, anybody can get hot, right? Like we've seen that happen 1,000 times. But you were supposed to be a threat. And and I have some takes on this when we get to Kansas City, but like the king was dead. You know what I mean? Like the king was on, or not even the king, like the bad guy in the movie. You know how like you ever watch your standard, horror film, whatever, and they just knock out the bad guy. They just leave him on the floor with like the chainsaw or the sword or whatever. They left Patrick Mahomes and everybody right there. Yeah. And I mean, like you had
Jason again. We didn't.
You had your chance, and I feel for Bills fans because you're in this awkward place where you want to give credit to the comeback, but like everything is really bad, and this is kind of the sunken place. This tweet came out, Pete. I don't know if you saw it, as the comeback that wasn't meant to be ultimately was happening. NFL Research tweeted out again. This is has been impacted, but Tom Brady prior to this game ending had led by 20 or more points in a game 129 times in his career, including the playoffs, and led by 21 against the Bills. Brady was 128-1 in those games, with the lone loss coming to the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills almost pulled it off a second time. Of course, they did not. Yeah, man. I mean, this is, you're relying on Devin Singletary and Matt Breida. I mean, like, that's just never going to work. I mean, and you know what, like Pete, and I'm saying this partly to make you happy, but mostly because it's true. Like, spare me, Bills. Like, Sean McDermott came out and threw a fit about, Bill Belichick on Monday night last week. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde got upset about the line of questioning, and there's certainly, legitimacy to that. But you know what, Bills, you want to come out and like thumb your nose at everybody and say like, you know what, stop questioning us. Like, this is what it's like. And the Chiefs went through this. You all know, Pete, earlier this season. If you want to be at the top of the mountain, people are going to say things. People are going to ask things. And if you can't handle it, if you keep losing, then you didn't deserve to be there in the first place.
If you lose the football game and you're McDermott, don't say that Bill Belichick doesn't deserve the credit. The Bills right now, they were so likable, and I understood.
Oh, dude, they were awesome.
We're so behind the Bills, and they've become a little whiny and, in a sense, unlikable the last few weeks. I think because they're just like saying, "No, we are contenders," and it's like the standings say you're in 7th place. You're not contenders, and you're not even close to the New England Patriots right now. And you have to win against the Panthers, and then you're going to have to win against the New England Patriots. And you lost when they threw the ball 3 times.
The Bills kind of remind me of, and it's funny, we recently, Pete, passed the 10-year anniversary of the Houston Texans showing up to New England of all places in their Letterman jackets, if you recall.
Oh my God. What a special NFL memory that was. And I do like the way a Letterman jacket looks.
Sure. I mean, it's
gotta be the right type of thing. I don't know about an NFL team doing
gotta be the right, but that's what I was gonna say. The Bills are like, okay, like high school Pete's on top of the world, getting ready to go to Syracuse, great guy all around, and it's cold outside. It's mid 40s, it's low 50s. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You put that bad boy on, nobody's gonna question you. But what the Bills to me feel like, Pete,
Fonz-esque almost.
The Bills are like the junior that got their Letterman jacket, and you know what I'm saying. And it's like 63 outside, and they're like, well, there's a slight chill in the air.
You haven't even smoking a cigarette yet. I don't really want to hear it. Like, like that type of situation.
They're just like, well, I'm going to the movies. It's always cold in there. Sure. I'm going to take my jacket. Like, that's how they're like, oh, you're cold? You want my jacket? You want my Letterman jacket? It's right. I got it in the car. Like, that's who the Bills are to me. So what a shame, but let's move on.
Letterman jacket, also good in high school. If you're on, your first time dating, your partner gets a little cold.
Dating advice from Pete. Here we go.
Hey, can I give you my jacket? And
you're the first person in the history of relationships to think of offering your jacket to somebody who's cold, Pete.
Selfless.
Good for you. Okay, this game was in overtime, as you mentioned, and we got Scott Hansen mentioned this on the Red Zone broadcast. The rare double overtime situation in the late game window. It was kind of like a dance, like a back and forth with overtimes. Buffalo losing to Tampa, and Cincinnati, Pete, the Bengals, your Bengals.
It's time for the witching hour. When games become final and things get decided.
To the San Francisco 49ers.
Scott Hansen.
26-23, the final score. Who said Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't clutch? Who said that Kyle Shanahan was done? I mean, what a turnaround for Kyle Shanahan. I mean, this season was done, and I got to give him all the credit in the world for, just sticking his foot in the ground and turning this thing around. The 49ers outlasting. I mean, this was a really interesting game. They were up 20-6 at one point, and won this game 26-23. So a little bit of a comeback that wasn't meant to be here as well. Jimmy Garoppolo, Pete, threw the ball 41 times, 27-41, 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner to Brandon Ayuk. It was a little bit, not really thrilling. It was a touchdown that was ruled one after a review, and it was kind of like, touchdown, they win the game.
Anticlimactic, they call that.
Yeah. Joe Mixon, 58 yards, kind of a quiet day. Joe Burrow, kind of fantastic. Jamar Chase had 2 touchdowns, helped me in my dynasty league. Shout out to him. Yeah, both of these teams are 7-6 now and kind of trying to figure out who they are. One in one place, one in a little bit of a better one.
Yeah, I think we're to a point because of George Kittle and his injuries the past few seasons. We sometimes forget how good he is. I mean, he is every bit deserving to be next to Kelsey and Gronk and Waller when he's healthy. He's another one that's injured right now, and that is certainly impacting the Raiders. But he caught all 9 of his targets down the seams, according to the Next Gen stats, and that was 105 yards on those receptions. He had 151 yards in this game, 15 total targets, 13 catches. He had the touchdown. And to me, the healthy Kittle is the key here. I mean, they've been leaning on Deebo Samuel a lot this year. I know that Brandon Ayuk got a little bit more burn in this game because Samuel is dealing with injury himself. But Kittle, to me, is the difference for this team offensively. He just is such a threat, and I think he opens everything up for them. He is the most dynamic player on the team when he's healthy. And you're right. I think Kyle Shanahan has pulled this out of his hat, in a sense. And if you really watch the details of this game, this was a game where, like, if you were an NFL fan and you've seen enough games and you're die hard, it just felt like, okay, this is the Bengals. They're going to win it. The Bengals are going to win. All the momentum is with them. And then to be able to curb that, stay with it. They get to overtime and they are able to pull it out with the touchdown. It showed some grit. And I don't know if the 49ers are necessarily going to be a high seed, but I think they're a really interesting playoff team that, to me, is starting to garner the identity of, like, they may be a wild card team that you don't want to see. It's like that March Madness 13 seed that is suddenly starting to get hot at the right time, and you'd rather play someone else.
Wichita Falls, baby.
That you mean Wichita State, the Shockers?
Whatever. Well, Wichita Falls is a city. My bad. Yeah. Wichita State. Yeah, hey, sometimes you mix names up, whatever. It is
no doubt. But yes, so the 49ers, to me, are that team, and who knows, RJ, maybe it'll be a little 49ers Cowboys wild card weekend tilt. That'll be interesting.
It might be. They are currently the 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture, and we'll see what happens with the Los Angeles Rams. They've been unable to fully catch them. They've been a game back, for a little bit. And last week, the Rams winning, they lost to Seattle, so they lost some ground. We'll get into Monday Night Football certainly at the end of the show, but San Francisco comfortably, as mentioned, in the 6th spot. They are now 7-6. There are 5 teams at 6 and 7, all hunting for that 7th seed in the NFC. I did want to say, I feel like, everybody looks at the 49ers, and obviously George Kittle's awesome, but from a wide receiver standpoint, really thinks of Deebo Samuel, and for good reason. He's amazing. But Brandon Ayuk, I feel like doesn't get enough love. I mean, in part of last year,
he was in a little bit of a doghouse at the beginning of this year, it seemed.
But I mean,
now they've had to lean on him with the Samuel injury.
Right, and he's first round pick last year. He wasn't CeeDee Lamb, wasn't Justin Jefferson, so he kind of got forgotten in the mix. I think he's, let's give Brandon Ayuk some love here. I mean, the game winning touchdown he had was awesome. And so Brandon Ayuk, I mean, not a glamorous day in the stat sheet, 6 catches, 62 yards, and the game winner. But what about Cincinnati, Pete? We talked about Buffalo. Yeah. Cincinnati is one of those 7-6 teams. They are the 9 seed right now. You think back to, we have certain moments of the season kind of like printed in our minds or imprinted. Joe Burrow's at the Thursday Night Football set after they beat the Jaguars, and you kind of felt like, well, they're going to the playoffs. This is going to be a Bengals year, and now they're in this fight. I mean, this is going to be a brawl to get these last 2 wild card spots in the AFC. I do trust Cincinnati more than most of these teams. I might trust them the most of all the 7-6 teams, but I mean, it's a tough shake down the road.
Yeah, I got a couple things on the Bengals. First of all,
tell us all your things.
Jamar Chase,
baller,
young star. There's so many
superstar.
Young, talented playmaker, wide receiver types and it's almost becoming there's almost like a flex position, less Chase, and I'm thinking about some other guys, but wow, it's going to be fun to watch him and Burrow. I kind of hated on the move by going to get Chase.
A lot of people did. You're not alone.
And I can see why they did it. This is going to be a combo that will be something for a long time. Now, with the Bengals, I think what makes them interesting, and it's tough for them not to get this game because this would have given them a lot more control when it comes to the division. But they have a quarterback that can win, to me, in the playoffs. I know that for a long time it was defense wins championships. I think over the years it's turned into quarterbacks win championships. You have to have a quarterback or you're not going to win the playoffs most years. Of course, there'll be the outliers like Denver, for example. But to me, I like Burrow enough to say, okay, if the Bengals can get into the tournament, they are going to be an interesting out. Now, you look at this division. This is the most exciting division, I think, in football the rest of the way, because you have a situation where every team, seemingly, even the 6-1 Steelers, who completely blew that comeback the other night, they're still alive in this. You have the Ravens at 8-5, and who knows about Lamar Jackson and his injury situation. The Cleveland Browns at 7-6. The Bengals, who we just talked about, lose, and they're at 7-6. And then you have the Steelers, who, if they were to win out, and that'd be a tall task, right? But they would be in the mix too. And so this division can go in 4 different directions, and it's week 14. That's crazy. And so I'm excited to see what happens in this division the rest of the way.
Cincinnati's scheduled to finish things up. They are at Denver on Sunday. Then Baltimore, you mentioned, we'll see what happens with Lamar Jackson. They get the Chiefs themselves in the penultimate week of the regular season, and then at Cleveland to end it. So lots of action. I could kind of see that being the Sunday Night Football flex. Yeah, Cincinnati at Cleveland, the Battle of Ohio, blah, blah, whatever.
I would, as you know, I would definitely be rooting for the Bengals.
Of course you would. Let's stay in Ohio.
Wait a minute. One more thing. Sorry. I saw the uniforms in this game. You didn't like the Bengal uniforms, right? I felt like my RJ alarm was going off. I'm like, RJ, there's no way RJ likes this white orange sock combo creamsicle thing.
Here's my issue. I don't like when red-based teams and orange-based teams play each other. It just, it's like I don't like a Chiefs-Browns matchup for that same reason. But I actually really hate the black jerseys that the Bengals wear. And here's my reasoning for it. On the shoulders, they have the Bengali stripes, right? Like the tiger. Right. And the stripes are orange, whereas their helmets, the base is orange and the stripes are black. So that's not the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
What?
Like the stripes need to be.
This is definitely one of these situations where, like, I'm sorry I asked. You've lost me already.
You opened this door.
I know. Let's shut the door. You're right. Let's move on.
Let's stick with orange-based teams in Ohio that have CB as their initials. The Cleveland Browns, who you were talking about just a moment ago, Pete, get the dub over the Baltimore Ravens, who were the number 1 seed in the AFC just 2 weeks ago. The NFL can change that quickly. 24-22, the final score here. Myles Garrett had his first career touchdown to make it a 24-3 proposition in the first half. It was pretty much over at that point. I know Baltimore, had a valiant effort in the second half, but it never, at least to me, never really felt like this was much in doubt. Personally, I never thought that Huntley was going to do anything special. Lamar Jackson only had 4 pass attempts. The worry, according to all reports, is a high ankle sprain for him. Baltimore has sustained injury after injury after injury, Pete. They are playing the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, and then the Cincinnati Bengals, as mentioned, and then the Los Angeles Rams, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers to close it out. Another contender for that Sunday Night Football spot in Week 18. And so it is going one way for the Ravens, and it doesn't feel like it's a good one.
The season's over for the Ravens. They did a fantastic job, I think, up to this point, surviving to go 8-5 with their 20-player long.
Well, they were 8-3 to your point. Like, they were 8-3 at one point with all the mess. And granted, some mess has happened the last 2 weeks, but just to that point.
The 20-player long injury list was very, very impressive. And if Lamar Jackson can't play the rest of the way, they're done, because the AFC is just too competitive and they're not going to be able to win every game. And you almost have to at least go 3 of 4, you would think, to make the postseason. And I just don't think that Huntley, to his credit, is capable. This team is one that wins through Lamar Jackson, and he's that important. If he has an high ankle sprain, they're going to fall out of the playoffs. And it might end up bailing a team out like a Cleveland Browns, like a Buffalo Bills, where now there is an extra spot. And you hate to say that, but I would be stunned if the Ravens behind Huntley make the postseason at this point. And to me, the Browns, they're up 24-3 in this game, and it somehow turns into 24-22. Baker Mayfield, I know that he's been dealing with some injury, himself, and it's been a tough year for him in that regard. This is a golden opportunity in this game where you need to step on a division rival's throat. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they let this team back in, to me, I can't get behind the Cleveland Browns to do anything in the postseason. I just can't. I don't believe in Baker Mayfield. I've never really been a Mayfield guy. It's about the opposite that I felt like when we were talking about Burrow in the last segment. Myles Garrett, though, I feel is a different story.
Super freak.
It was between maybe him and TJ Watt. I know we were talking about Diggs earlier in the year, and Parsons could be in that mix, but it seems like Myles Garrett is going to be the pick for Defensive Player of the Year. Forced a fumble, ran it back for a touchdown in this game. To me, Garrett has just been by far such a game wrecker. And TJ Watt, I think, might have had a chance for this if he could just stay healthy this year. Hasn't been the case. And so I think this eventually Defensive Player of the Year goes to Garrett. And to me, it's the number one reason why the Cleveland Browns are relevant and are going to be in the postseason, be it the first place team or a wild card. And we'll see if he can wreck some games, but they're gonna have to win defensively because Baker Mayfield is just not it for me.
Yeah, I had kind of personally, withdrawn Cleveland from consideration to win the AFC North, but given the situation with Pittsburgh, given the situation with Lamar Jackson, that Browns Bengals game we mentioned, that might not be for a wild card spot. That might be for the division. You know what I mean? I think Cleveland could wind up hosting a playoff game, which would be very interesting. I mean, obviously we're talking about week 14 and everything that happened, but I don't know that anybody thinks the Browns are going to pay Baker Mayfield in the offseason. I don't think I would rule them out of the Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, whatever those, situations become, because this is a really good team. Yeah, this is a really good defense, has a defensive baller, as you mentioned, potentially a Defensive Player of the Year. Baker puts a ceiling on this team's potential. And so I don't know how you stick around there. I don't know that I'm willing to fork Baltimore and say that they're done playoff wise. I mean, they're already at 8 wins. I think they'd have to maybe go 1-3.
So many teams make this mistake of paying the quarterback just because you feel like they have to. And I think you do it when he is franchise and flirting with elite. But like you see the Eagles and paying Wentz. I think of like the Jaguars, and I know it's a different situation when they pay Foles just because like they feel like they have to. I don't think the Browns should make that mistake because then it just sets your franchise back for years. So look at what you have and be honest about it. It's going to take a tough organizational decision to be like, you know what, we can do better than this. We can be better than this.
Well, kudos to the Cleveland Browns. They are 7-6, get back above 500. It's been a topsy-turvy season for them. They have the Raiders on Sunday. So very interested to see how that ultimately shakes out. Let's go, Pete, to our nation's capital, where the Dallas Cowboys did successfully defeat the WFT. 27-20, the final score. However, at halftime, it was 24-0. Thank you, Bear. I know you were pissed.
Is Bear a Cowboys fan? I guess he is, right?
He is. He obviously, is.
I know he's a fan of the Garbage Man.
I mean, well, I don't know if he's a fan, but he's definitely upset by him sometimes. But Cowboys up 24-0 at halftime. Micah Parsons was phenomenal, had 2 sacks in this game. One of them forced a fumble that Dorrance Armstrong returned for a touchdown. Randy Gregory had one of the most amazing interceptions you'll ever see a defensive lineman make. Everything was awesome, Pete, at halftime. You're feeling, okay, it's up to 24-0. We're getting to 9-4. We've effectively won the division. It's going to be an awesome week at Blogging the Boys throughout the Blogging the Boys universe. And then the second half happens, and it really wasn't even the second half. I mean, it was the fourth quarter, and it was really the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. Washington scores in the third quarter. Okay, cool. It's cute. They get the 2-point conversion, 24-8. No big deal. Dallas squeaks out a field goal after a fumble recovery at Washington's 25-yard line. And in the near final minutes of the game, Dak Prescott throws an awful pick six. I mean, just a disgusting pass.
Like you didn't see him somehow.
I don't know how. And that's kind of the story, Pete, is, this, and I'm approaching this with measured confidence because the Cowboys defense looks amazing right now, but their last two games and their last two elite performances have come against Taysom Hill and not even a full game's worth of Taylor Heineke. So there is some context there that I think matters. I don't want to take away from what they're doing, like I said, but this is some of the worst football I've ever seen Dak Prescott play. And it goes all the way back to the Denver Broncos loss. I mean, he was awful in that game. Everybody was. And you kind of chalked it up to, well, everybody was bad. They were, feeling a little bit pompous, a little bit arrogant. They kind of got checked. They came out, destroyed Atlanta. Okay, all is well. They go to KC, as you know. They're not great there. They're awful against Vegas, and they have a nice fourth quarter to make it look more respectable. They hold on in New Orleans despite a really flat offensive showing, and they put up one offensive touchdown in this game against Washington. I mean, this is, and people still, Peter, like the number one offense in the NFL because of everything they did the first half of the season, but over the last 5 weeks, this has just been an offense that has done nothing. And Dak is playing awful. Kellen Moore is awful. The idea that anyone thinks he can be an NFL head coach is hilarious to me. Mike McCarthy did guarantee this. Did you see the drama with the benches, by the way, in this game?
A lot of bench drama.
Mm-hmm. So, that's where we're at. Cowboy again.
How about the Seahawks and Cowboys talking?
Oh.
And the Seahawks just basically ratting, in a sense, on the WFT about their lack of heat on the benches.
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys bring their own benches. If you bring your own benches to a game, you got to win it. So
they did.
They won their bench game here.
This is a win that feels like a loss. I mean, it really does, especially because it's so disheartening to know this team's going to win the division, host a playoff game, and you feel like their quarterback is not playing well at all. I mean, if that's not the case, you mentioned it. I mean, you got to have that.
What's tough about this game in particular is, as we mentioned, the pick six to make it 27-20, and then Heineke's out of this game with an ankle injury, and it has to be Kyle Allen, and you're left wondering, well, what would have happened if Heineke was the quarterback at the end here? Do they tie it up? Does it go to overtime? Does Dallas somehow blow this in overtime? So we weren't afforded that. The defense is there, and you're reminding me of myself watching the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, where you're like, the defense is just so good. If the offense could simply figure it out and get back to where it was, man, this is a Super Bowl contender. The problem is that it's 3 weeks later, and we're that closer to the playoffs, and you're wondering, well, is that even within them to get back there? Dak, 22 of 39 for 211, the touchdown and the 2 interceptions, the really bad one. But the defense is there, and I've said this to you before, and it seems like every week I feel more and more confident about it. Man, in all these redrafts that they're going to do, you see these off-season articles of like, let's redraft the 2021 NFL draft. Parsons should be 1-1.
He's a freak, dude.
Unless you want to make a case that maybe a team should have taken Mac Jones in the top 1 or 2. I could buy that because you need a quarterback, but 1 or 2, right? He is the best defensive player by far.
He's the best player on the Cowboys.
He's one of the best defensive players in the league, and he's a rookie. And to me, just the game he had, he forced a fumble that was returned for a touchdown, and then you get the defensive play at the end of the game with Gregory and Curtis and sealing it. So you can win through defense, but as I said, right, like, we've now come to a part of what is football that you have to have the quarterback playing well to win a championship. And right now the offense is not good enough for the Cowboys to win the NFC. So you have a couple weeks to figure it out. And I said this about Kansas City, and we're still not sure about Kansas City in the sense that they've only really looked good offensively against the Raiders. You got to see it against more teams, but there's still time for the offense to meet the defense in the middle. And if it does, the Cowboys are just as spicy as anyone else.
One thing that I have been saying across all B2B properties is actually a ripoff of something my friend Pete Sweeney said about the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's, I posed this in our postgame show. If I could have guaranteed you, if you're a Cowboys fan, that one thing would be elite in December, what would you have chosen? You would have said the defense, and you would have said what you said about Kansas City. I trust the offense to figure it out because they've done it before, etc. It's worrisome. It's troublesome. They have a date against the New York Giants before Taylor Heineke and co return or head to AT&T Stadium themselves next Sunday on Sunday Night Football. But They have some time to figure it out, but this month is going to fly by. Last thing, Pete, on this game, the NFC East can be won by Dallas on Sunday if they are victorious over your New York, not so good at football Giants, and if the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Washington football team. So the NFC East mixtape is in harmony.
Does it shut down once a team clinches, or does that thing keep current all
you would know if you're a listener. You can listen on the Blog of the Boys or Bleeding Green Nation podcast network. Anybody? So. Okay, Pete, where do you want to go next? Pick a card, any card. How about
49ers in the Bengals? Did we talk about that already? We did.
How dare you? Let's go to we didn't touch on Sunday Night Football, and I want to bring this up, Pete. And I hope you know how painful it is for me to admit this. All right. Robert Quinn has a nice play at the beginning of this game and does the discount double check. All right. Wow. I like Robert Quinn. Had a great season for the Cowboys. Wish him well. Here's the thing, NFL defensive players. One, this is not the bear you poke, no pun intended. But two, doing the discount double check celebration, which is famous only because of how amazing Aaron Rodgers has been, only highlights how amazing Aaron Rodgers has been and how that has come at the expense of you and your team. Right. My dog's name is Bear. For pride's sake, I would like to see the Bears be respectable. All right.
The dog's name isn't Cowboy, quite honestly, but continue.
Good point. But I mean, Bears, get it together. And then you do this discount double check. And cool. You're up in this game, 10-7, 17-14, 24-14. And then Aaron Rodgers shows up and you lose 30-45.
The owner of the Bears.
Yeah, he is. I loved what Aaron Rodgers said about this last week when he said, look, I don't regret it. It's going to be used against me, because he will lose to the Bears someday, Peter. That will happen. And all the Bears fans will be like, who owns who now? He owns you. That's what this is. Yeah. He owns you.
It's like a Brady Bills situation. Even if the Bills are able to get a win here or there, it's still Brady owning the Bills.
It's worse than that, because at least the Bills have made it close. Like there's no gap. You know what I mean? Or there's nothing but a gap is my point here. Aaron Rodgers was fantastic. 29 of 37, 341 yards, 4 touchdowns. Devontae Adams had 121 himself, 2 touchdowns. I mean, just another, clinical day at work for the Packers. And the Bears continue to flounder. Justin Fields, this is maybe his nicest showing, but I mean, dude, get rid of Matt Nagy now. Like this ship is going nowhere.
Right. I think the grand takeaway for Chicago is you got to the point of the game in the second half, one that you were winning, I believe, at halftime, correct? Yeah, they were winning at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
You got to the second part of this game, and you have Collinsworth and Michaels talking about the state of your organization. That is kind of sums up where Chicago is at right now. Will they keep Nagy? Will they keep Pace? Will they get rid of both? Do they want to do that to Fields? Nagy didn't pick Trubisky. Trubisky's in Buffalo, and they're just talking about your organization. Like it's exactly where you don't want to be at the end of this football game. Jakeem Grant came out of nowhere. He had a couple nice moments in this game. I know it doesn't matter at all, really, but the punt return was just insane. And so I just want to touch upon that. Like the lone bright spot was Grant, and this is going to be a one-time thing. It's not like, kind of like a fluky, but he just had an amazing game. So I wanted to make sure to talk about his 2 touchdowns. And then the Packers look like they are, right? You have what is an NFC bye-week contender here. If the Rams are able to knock off the Arizona Cardinals on Monday Night Football, the Packers will enter what is week 15 as the number 1 seed. And they look the part. They deserve it. We do have to note that Aaron Rodgers' toe worsened in this game.
We only know that because that's the one thing. Aaron, quit talking about the toe. I mean, just he's Ben Roethlisberger bring this up.
I think he's trying to just create enough storylines to forget about the Pat McAfee interview from a few weeks back. But
we're gonna need a lot more.
Devontae Adams always finds a way every few weeks to remind us that he's still the best wide receiver in the NFL, and Justin Jefferson's right there. There are a couple other guys, but Adams is the cream of the crop.
Soon to be free agent, Devontae Adams.
And they have the 1-2 punch, in the running back room with Dillon kind of emerging here. So interesting team. Would you be stunned if the Packers are in the Super Bowl? I think across the board on the SB Nation NFL show, we'd say absolutely not. That they could be the Super Bowl team, and that's where they are. And the Chicago Bears are about to fire everybody. So
I know that Cliff Kingsbury is in the running for Coach of the Year. I would give it to Matt LaFleur. I think when you consider everything he's had to deal with this year, I mean, Matt LaFleur is the coach of the year. And I feel like and this happened to Mike McCarthy. We don't give the Packers head coach credit because it's Aaron Rodgers. We're like, he's doing nothing, blah, blah. It's just Aaron Rodgers. Like, Matt LaFleur deserves a lot of credit in my mind. The Bears deserve none. The Bears don't even have a first round pick next year. Like, the Bears are just a disaster right now. So
I believe it went to the Giants, right? So the Giants will be picking two picks in the top 10, it looks like. So we'll see what they can do with that.
Both the Bears and the Giants are 4-9. Speaking of the G-men, let's head to where you will be in a couple days' time, Pete Sweeney. The LA Chargers come out with a force and defeat the New York Giants 37-21. Hey, yeah. Giants fans coming out the woodwork because Saquon Barkley caught a touchdown. Saquon Barkley scored.
He's back.
So clearly all is well with the New York Giants, who Mike Glennon, it was never going to go well. If we're all being honest, did have a rushing touchdown in garbage time, but a respectable performance.
After the second touchdown, he was neck and neck with the Chargers at a certain point.
Justin Herbert really did have the yeet of the week here.
Okay.
The touchdown throw to Jalen Guyton was sick. One of the sickest throws you'll ever see.
70 air yards, it looked like.
It was magnificent. So congratulations to Herbert and to Jalen Guyton. But Herbert, 23 of 31, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. Austin Eckler a bit banged up in this game. There's no question that the biggest game of the season is coming up for the Chargers at home on Thursday night with my man Pete Sweeney there. What is there to say other than the Chargers are good and the Giants are not?
Well, the Giants were never going to win this game with Mike Glennon starting. And I think, they're preparing for next year and are trying to figure out how to really turn this team around with the top 2 picks. With those top 2 picks, they got to be considering a quarterback. I don't know a ton about the class. We haven't gotten into that yet. But if there is a possibility there and they like somebody, they got to start thinking about life after Jones, in my opinion. We'll see what happens with Barkley. Other side of this, the winning team, I'm not saying he's an MVP candidate, but this was an MVP outing for Justin Herbert with some MVP moments. And sure. I think it is a huge confidence builder for a Chargers team going into the most important game, not only of this season, but really in recent memory for this franchise. It's made light of in Kansas City how the Chargers always find a way to charger, and they have everything right in front of them here because they got that win against Kansas City earlier in the year. They have an opportunity to take a stranglehold of what is the AFC West on Thursday Night Football. They put themselves in this position. They finally seem to be healthy at the right time. I know that Keenan Allen needs to come back to this team. Derwin James is a question, but I think he should be available. Eckler had a little bit of an injury scare in this game, but it's seeming like he's going to be good to go for this game. This not only feels like the big game for both the Chiefs and the Chargers this year, it feels like the biggest game in the AFC, because unless the New England Patriots continue to win, which is possible, whoever wins this game is going to be in a really good position to potentially take the first seed in the AFC and at the very least host a playoff game. And so we'll see what ends up happening in this. I'm really looking forward to it. I think in a sense, it's a shame it's on a short week because sometimes we're dealt a weird hand on Thursday Night Football, but this game was more about Herbert. And with Mahomes playing well, I think this game will draw Herbert versus Mahomes. And I think we're still in the beginning stages of what is going to be each other's greatest rival in their careers. And so this is one of the first chapters.
I'm very, very excited for Thursday night. I've told you before, one of my favorite Thursday night games in recent memory, I think it was 2018. We talked about the Chargers win in Kansas City. Was just kind of a fun, maybe 2019.
Caught lightning in a bottle, didn't they?
Nice. Bet nobody's ever said that about the Chargers before. Nice.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm doing there?
Yeah, nice.
I believe they went for 2, as you probably loved on that one.
They got it, and there was a walk-off, 2-point situation. Very cool. Right. I do remember.
I think Eric Berry checked out in the second half of that game, and they could have used him on that play. And I
vividly remember perusing the Arrowhead Pride comment section after that game, and it was it's a tough scene, to say the least. But okay, so Pete, you ready to kind of blitz through the remaining games? Are you ready?
If there's one thing I love, it's going fast through these games. So I'm happy to do it.
Okay, we start with the Kansas City Chiefs, who, as we mentioned, defeated the Las Vegas Raiders 48-9. My quick thoughts on this, Pete: Raiders, you're frauds. You've been through a rough year, all right, and I understand that. But the decision to go to the midfield logo before the game,
wow.
So stupid, so dumb. You talked about it with Mike McCarthy. Again, I thought the guarantee thing was dumb at the beginning of the week, and then
Sure.
the benches thing was made up to be something funny, and it looks funnier now because they won. But you can only do those kinds of things if you win, because if you lose, you look really stupid. And Raiders, spare me with this we're going to take if you wanted to take this rivalry or these games seriously, you should have done it a couple of weeks ago when you were at home in Vegas and you got trounced. I mean, you had no business doing anything like that. What an embarrassment. I mean, I don't know who I feel the worst for. It might be Derek Carr, but I mean, it was 35-0, as you mentioned. I mean, awful.
Chiefs win this game 48-9. This was the biggest win against the Raiders ever in history, and it's a very historic rivalry dating back to the days of the AFL. So pretty cool for Kansas City in that sense. Completely agree about the logo. The Chiefs were playing for their cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed. Couldn't be at this game. Ended up losing his brother in a stabbing tragedy. He had to go to Louisiana to grieve. And Mike Hughes, who was traded to the Chiefs by the Minnesota Vikings for a conditional sixth and kind of was thrown away by Minnesota, had two forced fumbles and a fumble recovery for a touchdown on the first play of the game. Chiefs never looked back. They looked at one of the best defenses in the league, playing like one of the better defenses in the league. And finally, the offense is meeting in the middle. But as I said, the theme for the Chiefs right now is Patrick Mahomes and the offense has looked good now twice against the Las Vegas Raiders. You kind of need to see it against somebody else. Golden opportunity on Thursday Night Football to prove that I think they really belong there. And wow, a really important come up of the week. And that goes to, the Arrowhead Stadium midfield logo, because this thing, it was danced upon prior to the game, and then it comes out of it. And I took a picture. If you want to go to my twitter.com/PG Sweeney, I took a picture as I was leaving the stadium. I mean, that thing was almost smiling at the end of the night. Like it knew the Raiders were dumb for doing that. So the come up of the week goes to the Arrowhead. Come on. Kansas City pressure, Derek Carr, 34% of his dropbacks, and that was the highest in any game for the Chiefs this season. The Chiefs win logo gate. All is right in Kansas City, and just waiting to see what happens here. They're in a situation, and RJ, you can roll your eyes if you want, don't care. Win Thursday. Colts beat the Patriots on Saturday night.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Steelers beat the Titans on Sunday, and guess who's number one in the AFC? The Kansas City Chiefs once again with 3 weeks to play. So we'll see if that happens, but it all begins on Thursday night. I'm very, very excited to get out to Los Angeles, and I'm thrilled I get to go see SoFi and see this game. It should be a good one.
Tell Netflix we said what up. The New Orleans Saints cruised through. The New York Jets kept themselves alive in the NFC wildcard race, 30-9, the final score. The Jets, Pete Sweeney, now officially mathematically eliminated from playoff contention, along with the Houston Texans.
So bad.
I mean, what is there to say? I mean, it's bad. It's really, really, really bad. It's never not bad for the Jets. It's just, it is what it is. 30-9, final score. Good job, Sean Payton. Speaking of Netflix, the show's supposed to come out pretty soon.
Kamara came back in this game, 120 yards and a touchdown. And now the Jets have not made the playoffs in 11 straight years. The Saints D had 21 pressures in this game. So look, I'm not going to put all my eggs in the Saints basket, but
sure,
they could be interesting if they somehow sneak in. I think they could, be a team that all of a sudden, it's a bad matchup, that first wild card matchup, and you're like, oh my God, are the Saints going to beat this team because of the way the defense is playing?
I hope you like the Saints, Pete, because you're about to get a lot of them. All right, you're getting the Saints on Sunday Night Football in Tampa Bay, and then you're getting them on Monday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. So get ready for some New Orleans.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they could flex both of those games out, right?
I don't believe that the Monday night games can be flexed, because
they can.
I don't think so, dude, because that's a different day of the week. You know what I mean? So
this was a change that going into this year.
Well,
I believe 2 weeks out, we might be too late for that. I believe 2 weeks out, they can switch a team to Monday.
Well, you really want to miss New Orleans taking on the two Florida teams, because the third one doesn't really exist. But
the Jags. You're talking about the Jags?
Speaking of, let's just go ahead and get there. The Jags get blanked by the Tennessee Titans, 20-0, Pete. Ryan Tannehill, 20 of 31, 191 yards. Didn't matter. Mr. Foreman, 13 carries, 47 yards, a touchdown. Tannehill also had a rushing touchdown. Just a horrible day. The leading rusher on the Jacksonville Jaguars was James Robinson, Pete, who had 6 carries all right, for 4 yards. Now, keep in mind, his longest run of the day was 5 yards, but he still had 6 carries for 4 yards in totality. Trevor Lawrence, 24 of 40, 221 yards, 4 interceptions, just a disaster. I mean, and Pete, check this out. Over the weekend, report comes out from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero that Urban Meyer, big shock here, not exactly a good coach, that Urban Meyer, really shocked about this, is kind of a jerk. That Urban Meyer, I am completely surprised about this, is blaming everybody but himself. What a mess.
Bear clearly hates Urban Meyer as well. No, Titans needed to win this game. They took care of business. The bigger story actually right now, despite the Titans being what is the number 2 seed in the AFC and about to get Derrick Henry back. So if they can hold on here, really interesting team when it comes to the AFC playoffs. But we talked about the score being 20-0. The real score this week, RJ, and you alluded to it, was 1,145-0. And that was the word count on Tom Pelissero's article breaking down the Jacksonville Jaguars and how much of a mess it's been. You can't go into a coaching room and look at the coaches that you handpicked and tell them to defend why they there. Why are they there? They're there because you hired them, dude. And him to come out after the press conference and kind of say like, oh, it's all lies. Dude, no, it isn't. I would bet that Pelissero's article is about at least 90 to 100% true, right? It might all be true.
50% true. It's damning. You know what I mean? Like it's
Marvin Jones, who's a mild-mannered player and well-respected and truly like one of the better guys from what you can hear in the NFL, for him to be freaking out. And I believe that story from Pelissero where he basically got so mad he almost like couldn't stay at practice. This for the Jaguars owners is a non-option. You have to move on. You made a mistake, cut your losses, and get a coach in there that can re-steer your franchise like what you wanted Meyer to do. Why don't you get somebody who can actually do that? And it's embarrassing. They can't stay with this guy. This to me is a clear one and done. I don't care about the name. Yeah, the whole situation with him staying without a team. I mean, just going back to that situation, covering Andy Reid would have to like basically keel over and die before he left his team anywhere. It's just Meyer doesn't realize the opportunity that he has here, and Jacksonville should move on because to me, it's been just so embarrassing. It's been so embarrassing.
It's amazing when everyone agrees on something, right? Like in general, like anything in life, when you get a room of people to agree on one thing, it's amazing, right? And it's amazing that a room of people, being all NFL fans and analysts and people alike, knew that this would go there or predicted this would go this way. So it's amazing that everyone was in agreement. There was nobody saying, I think this could work. You know what I mean? Everybody thought this. And it's even more amazing that everyone was totally and completely right. The only person who seemingly was fooled by this was Mr. Khan, who has quite the embarrassment on his hands.
Quick quote here from Titan safety Kevin Byard. 2 Jaguars actually crashed in this game. This is what he said. I was laughing, to be honest. At the end of the game, guys running into each other. I don't want to say too much on it, but I was talking trash to them a little bit. It's tough for them boys over there. So you even have another NFL team, in a sense, laughing, but also at the same time feeling bad for the opponent. Figure it out, Jags.
The Atlanta Falcons outlasted the fraudulent Carolina Panthers 29-21. Cam Newton, 15 of 23, 178 yards, got benched and then put back in the game. Did have 10 carries for 47 yards and a score. I mean, the Falcons won, and good for them. They were less embarrassing. They didn't, they were up 17-7 and 20-14 and 26-14. And I know every Falcons fan, their thing, Pete, at the Falcoholic is no lead is safe. That's kind of Falcons fans.
That's the motto right now.
Yeah. But dude, I mean, I don't want to make everything about the Cowboys, but for so long I dealt with, the Cowboys made a mistake hiring Mike McCarthy instead of Matt Rule. Matt Rule looks like he has, like, to be very clear, the the like extreme end of the spectrum is Urban Meyer, and I'm not saying that from a character standpoint Matt Rule is anywhere near there, but from a not knowing what's going on with his NFL team perspective, Matt Rule is really in quite the place. I mean, he is in charge of a mess right now in Carolina.
Yeah, I haven't really seen this a ton. I'm sure it's a storyline in Carolina, though. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about it, but they moved on from Teddy Bridgewater, who has his team in a position to actually make the playoffs right now, which is unreal. And they went with Sam Darnold, who was interesting for the first couple of weeks, but ended up tailing off. They go and get Cam Newton. Now you're putting Walker in a game, and he is playing so poorly that you have to go back to Newton. It's bad. It's bad, and it's Rule created. And you feel for the team because they've been out without their identity now for 2 straight seasons, and McCaffrey just not being able to stay on the field. And I think you're ending up with a lot of questions in Carolina as to where you go with this team in the offseason. And then for the Falcons, I know you make the joke about the no lead is safe. You're getting questions with this team as well, because Matt Ryan, from what I saw from the next gen here, was not really throwing the ball that far down the field in this game. I wonder if there are questions about how much time he has left. And you go with Pitts, who's been good. He's had some really moments where he looks and flashes like one of those dynamic tight ends, but not necessarily the immediate impact that he was advertised as out of the NFL draft. And sometimes, you're at a point where I think Atlanta fans know that this team is not making the postseason. And so you almost like you celebrate the win, right? And you're happy. But in a sense, you got a lower draft pick, and your team continues to stay in that Minnesota level of mediocrity.
Oh, that's so mean to the Vikings. But
well, I forgot that I'm talking to Kirk Cousins' #1 fan. I did forget that, so you got to say.
I actually, as you say that, Pete, I saw this tweet floating around on Twitter during the show. If the Vikings had not given up any points in the 2-minute mark of either half in every game, they would be 12-0. So just food for thought as far as what Kirk is not able to do.
Did you know this? I wanted to make sure I told you this. If I had a trunk, I would be an elephant. Like that. That is also another thing I wanted to make sure I shared with you.
Have you seen The Santa Claus with Tim Allen? The movie?
That is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Yes.
So first of all, I literally this year I realized that the name of the movie is like the clause in the contract. I had never realized that before, but
yeah.
But I had it on in the background. My wife and I were doing some stuff over the weekend, and there's the part where the I don't know if he's the stepdad or whatever the situation is, but he's the psychologist, and he's reasoning with young Charlie, and he's like, "How can Santa be real? You blah blah. How can this be real? You've never seen it." And I love the line from Charlie. He says, "Well, have you ever seen $1 million?" And the guy's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, how do you know it's real?" Like I love that line. So
it really a zinger from Charlie.
Yeah,
Charlie gets a little troubled in later movies. Stops believing for a little bit, and then he comes back around. Santa, of course, is real.
Tough scene. The Seattle Seahawks got win number 2 in a row, 33-13. They vanquished the Houston Texans. Not much to say. Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson, nice day, I suppose. They are technically still alive in the NFC playoff picture. Even after this win, Pete, the Seahawks are the 13 seed in the NFC. They are behind, to put in perspective how bad they are, all of the NFC
I had a
South.
penny for every time they counted out the Seahawks.
Rashad Penny, 16 carries, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, good for the Seahawks, I guess. Nice win, but I mean, this is short-lived, right? This Seattle little run. I mean, they've got the Rams next Sunday, and they do kind of own them. And then, for being generous, it is the Christmas time. They've got Chicago and Detroit after that. So you never know. I mean, they could do this. It's still possible, Matthew.
They have to go 9-8, right? We agree on that.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude.
You have the Rams and Cardinals, but at that point, the Cardinals may be resting starters. So
they've got, if they beat the Rams, right, and they do own them, that's the weird NFC West relationship. So that would put them at 6-8.
It is funny how like the NFC West is this magical land, where no matter the records, anyone can win in any week, and so you don't know how it's going to go, even with Seattle.
You're right. You're right, though. that in week 18, when they're at Arizona, that the Cardinals could be resting starters, especially if the Cardinals don't get the first round bye. They might view that as their like manufactured first round bye.
Colt McCoy has shown an ability to win football games.
He has, but I don't know that you have to get to 9-8, because right now,
8
again, the 7th seed is 6-7 in the NFC. And so I think you could end up with a sub 500 team there. Not that 500 is a thing anymore, but you get what I'm saying? Like,
what about a new NFL rule where if the 7th seed is 6-7 and the 8th seed in the AFC is 500 or above, they switch over to the other conference to take the spot?
Different rule. If the 7th seed is below 500, then you just take them out and you give the 2 seed the bye back. I like that better personally.
They're never going to do that. You're never going to get rid of one of the games that makes the NFL billions of dollars. No.
We have one last game to recap, Pete. It was a difficult one. The Denver Broncos took down the Detroit Lions 38-10. An emotional day for all Broncos fans, obviously, as the team had a celebration of life for Demaryius Thomas, the star wide receiver for them that tragically passed away. Was reported on Thursday night, actually, as Thursday Night Football was coming to a close. Just incredibly sad story. 33 years old, would have been 34 on Christmas Day. Demaryius Thomas, obviously, as you know, Pete, won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, was a huge reason for that. Just a star player, really successful draft pick for them back in 2010. And Broncos obviously playing with heavy hearts. Took out the Lions and played really, really, really well. I've been hard on the Broncos all season long, but this was obviously a fantastic performance. Teddy was really efficient, 18 of 25, 179 yards, 2 scores, one to really, I mean, both of them were impressive, actually. Just a rough day at the office for the Lions. I mean, not that there is ever a good one for them. But the Broncos, you mentioned it, are in the thick of this thing as far as the AFC playoff picture is concerned. By the way, the Lions obviously also eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, the Broncos keep winning. They can make things interesting here. We'll see what ends up happening with them. They have found a recipe to get above 500, and you can just tell they're just so much better than the Raiders. I mean, they just have it a little bit more together. And, you have Teddy Bridgewater who does what he can, spreads the ball around a little bit. But I think the offense, you're really seeing a two-headed monster. I know that gets thrown around a lot in the NFL, but Javonte Williams is awesome. And Melvin Gordon had a great game, 24 for 111 and 2 touchdowns. He recently said that he would love to be back in Denver, but he doesn't know if the fans really want him back, which I felt a little bit bad for him there. But yeah, it was a good day for them. They had the moment where, they took the delay of game with 10 players on offense at the beginning of the game with Demaryius missing, and the Lions agreed to it, which I thought from Campbell was truly classy. And Fangio said that after the game. But yeah, I mean, Broncos just continue to move along. A good moment for them and their franchise when they had the heavy hearts of the Thomas situation, and the Lions continue to lose.
You mentioned thinking the Broncos are better than the Raiders, because there's not. This game was what it is. I think that the more interesting thing is who the Broncos ultimately become down the stretch here. They are in the race, and I mean, again, I've gone back and forth with them. I'm willing to believe. All right, I'm willing. Let's do this, Broncos. Let's do it together. Let's get in here.
You're hopping on the horse.
Yeah, I mean, let's do this. I'm with you. I'm ready to back you. All right, let's do it together.
You got the Bengals next week.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Final 4 games of the season for the Broncos here, Pete. Between the 7-6 Broncos, they got the Bengals at home. Tough game. They're on the road in Vegas against the True Frauds, the Las Vegas Raiders. Then they are on the road at your place, SoFi Stadium, to take on the Chargers. And then they get the Chiefs to wrap it up. And who knows there? I mean, with anything locked up, Chiefs resting starters, sort of situation.
If Andy Reid has nothing to play for, like if they're locked to in a position for somehow, which I don't think will be the case, because it's interesting at the top right now.
It could be, though. That's what I'm like. If we're playing around, yeah. I mean, this Broncos team could be postseason bound, which would be, I mean, it would certainly make things interesting for Teddy Bridgewater, Melvin Gordon, Vic Fangio, so on and so forth.
It's one of those organizations where it is interesting because I can sense that they want to move on from Fangio, but if he somehow pulls the playoffs out of his hat, I don't think he can do it. I just don't think he can do that.
I think I think this season, even if they go to the playoffs, if Vic Fangio's back, whatever, I mean, even if they're one and done in the playoffs, this season has kind of justified the oh, Aaron Rodgers should go to the Broncos takes from back in the days of the offseason, right? Like, this is a talented roster. They just need like, this season has kind of justified that, right? Like to a degree. I mean, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you can go anywhere that isn't the Packers, would you rather go to the Broncos, the Giants, or the Raiders, or the Saints?
I tend to think so. Playing 2022 Monday Football Monday a little bit here, I think Russ will be a Bronco, and I think Rodgers will be a Steeler.
Oh no, dude! There's no way the Packers trade with the Steelers. I mean, I think Russ is a Giant, and I think Rodgers is a Bronco. Not that those are like new takes or anything, but that's where my chips lie right now.
Where's Jimmy G? Houston.
That's not a bad take. The Nick Easterby connection from the New England days. I could see that. Okay,
I'm gonna get Osweiler back in the mix.
Monday night football preview.
Is there a Manning cast tonight? That's the number one question.
There's not. I think there's not. The Los Angeles Rams visit
Riddick, Brian Greasy.
The LA Rams will be in the desert taking on. There's a lot of places that are referred to as the desert. It's a difficult thing to keep straight. Visiting the Arizona Cardinals. We have all these takes going around. The Cardinals, the Suns. Nobody puts any respect on the Arizona sports. Whatever. Blah blah. This is a chance. The
hockey team often is about to get.
Oh yeah, they want nothing to do with them. We often tend though, Pete, to kind of think of who teams are from the times they're in national windows. Last time we saw the Cardinals under any bright lights was that Thursday night game that they lost to the Packers. They could really make a statement here with a win against the Rams, and I don't have any reason to believe in Sean McVay right now.
It's that NFC West thing I talked about, though. Can go either way. I love these NFC West games. I really do. I know that sometimes people get tired of watching the same division, but the thing you're guaranteed when the NFC West plays each other, especially on these primetime games, is it's always a good game, right? So I'm looking forward to watching it. I'm not gonna make a call. I'm just gonna enjoy this one.
I need you to make a call. It's literally the entire point of discussing it.
All right. The Rams always come out of the woodwork and fool you one way or the other. So I'm going to say they're going to upset the Cardinals, I guess. I want to just enjoy the game. I didn't want to have to make that call.
I'm Team Cardinals. So we got a burrito bet on the line here.
Well, I owe you a burrito for last week. I actually remember the burrito bet from last week, and I took the WFT with 6.5 points. Mm-hmm. And because they missed that extra point, I ended up losing carnitas out of it.
So you owe me a carnitas burrito. So
I'll take the Rams straight up. The point spread is -2.5.
Oh, you want to take them straight up?
I don't even
giving me
it.
Points.
Yeah.
Okay, straight up, even. All right.
Go for that. I get guac if I win.
This one's not carnitas though. This is just standard. Choose your burrito. This carnitas is special. All right, we got Dallas, Washington again next week if you want to run it back. But all right, well done.
I might go get some Chipotle. It's only 9:30 here in Kansas City, but I'm hungry.
You know what you do though? You do the veteran move like you. You get the app. You build the thing on your phone. You just go pick it up. Skip the line. Trust me.
Is it open right now?
Probably. I bet they open at 10. So you know what? Get yourself a cup of coffee. Cup. I was gonna say cup of Joe and coffee at the same time, so it's gonna sound like cup of Co. That wouldn't have been a thing.
Come up with a week. New word. Joffy.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Week 14 just about in the books. We are about to have only 4 weeks left. We're about to have Pete starting next week. Monday Football Monday is going to be massive because there are no more buys. All right, so we got 16 games, or I guess 14 games. I know there's the Saturdays that make things weird, but anyway, we got a lot of games to discuss every Monday from here on out. Are you ready?
Yeah. I have the sense of the daylight savings coming into me right now, where my body clock from doing this for like 10 years thinks there's like 3 games left, but there's an extra game. I can sense that it should be over sooner but then it's going to be. I know when I get to that second week of January, I'm gonna be like, this doesn't make any sense. Really cold.
Well, we'll be ready for that. Certainly, Pete Sweeney. Hey, you're the man, Pete Sweeney. You have a great Monday. Just have a great week while you're at it. You know what I mean? Have a great trip. Sure. What's the best thing you've ever watched on Netflix in the spirit of your trip out to the City of Angels?
Right. RJ keeps alluding to Netflix. My sister works for Netflix. So that's the connection here. We never explained that. So
yes, you did last week. You said it last week. Maybe you should listen.
You know that I don't remember what I said the previous week. So, yeah. So my favorite thing to watch on Netflix, I guess, has been, what is that show with The
Office?
No, it's the British show where they have No, the other
Peaky
one.
Blinders.
Peaky Blinders. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good run for me. I really enjoyed that. Obviously so much that I forgot the name of it, but yeah, Peaky Blinders has been good. I enjoy a lot from Netflix. I mean, it's a go-to. You can always find something, and I love the shuffle up choice they have now, where you just, I got some popcorn. I don't really know what to watch. Shuffle it, see what comes on.
What is your favorite thing on Netflix? Tweet at Pete Sweeney. He is at PG Sween. I am on
Money
Twitter
Heist,
at
by the way,
Ochoa.
is another one. But Spain,
never been my thing. Not into it.
Amazing show.
I'm not into the games of Squid. Not my thing.
Use the subtitles. You're against subtitles. I can tell. There's a theme here.
Hey, if I'm watching, I'm watching. I'm not reading. So, Pete Sweeney, the final 4 words belong to you. Make them great.
Subtitle this: Go Hawks.